Hello guys, my name is Anna and I'm from Ukraine, and I have decided to vlog daily since the start of this awful Russian invasion. And now my channel is a beautiful community of people who care about the future of the world and who support the victory of Ukraine. I welcome all of you to join if you're new to the channel and support our efforts to finally win this war. And today is the day to talk about victories because the world is celebrating or commemorating the end and the victory in the Second World War. And often going through this very similar experience in my real life, I understand how important it was to win the Second World War, and that a world would totally be a dark and miserable place if the other side had won the war. So the same is happening right now when dark and evil Russians are trying to occupy a free, independent and totally neutral, normal country of Ukraine. And we cannot allow this happen, because if this happens, something serious breaks in the normality of the world, and I'm sure other authoritarian regimes will continue attacking other independent and free states, and we will have constant problems and constant wars, because evil cannot prevail over good. And as this war continues, we often return back to the Second World War in our memories, in our associations. And I want to congratulate all of you with this victory, because Russians were trying to steal it too. And that's another tragedy for Ukrainians who were a part of the Soviet army and for other allies that supplied Soviet army. We all know that Russian soldiers drove American tanks, and this victory would have been impossible without the united efforts. But Russians brutally steal and lie, and they depict themselves as the only victors over Nazi regime, though the history demonstrates the contrary. I was always asking myself, why do we celebrate a victory on the 9th of May? This is a tradition that Ukraine inherited from its Soviet occupation, when the rest of the world is celebrating it on the 8th of May. First, I thought it's because of time difference, but now I realize it is because Russia wanted to separate itself from the rest of the world and to develop this myth that victory is only their achievement. We have a separate video in our series Soviet Myth Debunked, which talks a lot about the myth of the Second World War that Russians called the Great Patriotic War. And up to the beginning of this full-scale invasion, many memorials in many ex-Soviet republics, including Ukraine, stated 1941 as the beginning of the Second World War, aka Great Patriotic War, and it is only last year that we changed it to 1939. And it is an extremely important ideological shift inside Ukraine too. Why? Because the Second World War began in 1939, but for 2 years Soviets were totally satisfied with molotov-ribbentrop pact that they signed, and they believed they have divided the world between two super regimes of communism and of Nazi, and only then something went wrong, and Soviets joined the forces of Great Britain and other European countries that were already fighting. So I think actually a very dangerous symptom was when Russia started depicting itself as the only victor of the Second World War. This was already a signal that something inherently wrong is going on in their political ideology, in their society, and they have turned the idea of victory in a very wrong way. And perhaps tomorrow on this 9th of May I will record a vlog if nothing extraordinary, hopefully nothing extraordinary happens in Ukraine, and we will talk about that more. But today I'm happy that we are likely to celebrate the Victory Day together with the rest of the world on the 8th of May, and the 9th of May will turn into the Day of Europe. Our president was preparing these switches, and I am 100% in the support of them. And also I want to mention another victory that we still have to achieve, that is victory over Russian regime, because If we don't win this war, we are all in trouble. And I don't mean only Ukraine. I mean other authoritarian regimes that will get their inspiration from the evil that Russia spreads. And you know that all bad things, they are more contagious than good things. Today in Kyiv and in the rest of Ukrainian regions, we had another drone night. They like attacking us with drones. More than 60 Shaheds flew to Ukraine, and all of them were shot by Ukrainian armed forces. I'm super proud of us, and think how much money Russia spent in vain. I cannot even count. It's billions are so much needed to restore their roads and to give people water, toilets, but they prefer spending them on Ukraine. You know, like they spend a lot of money on us. And in a very perverted way. But anyway, all of these drones were stopped, though some destructions were caused in Kyiv. 36 drones were directed and targeted on Kyiv. By the way, a friend of mine who is also a designer developing our beautiful prints for t-shirts, hoodies and caps, and he lives in Kyiv, and he constantly tells me that I have to tell you that he is working during this air raid alarms sometimes from the shelter, and he says that like many of the t-shirts that we have in our shop are inspired by this air raid alarms. When you find creativity as one of the keys to your resistance. So all of you who have these t-shirts, mind that they were created in extraordinary conditions, and you can check our new collection in the link below this video in the description. But imagine what is it like to work when you are not sleeping constantly. Kyiv was attacked like 5 or 7 times during this week. Like every night, they do not sleep. People have to hide because Kyiv is often targeted. In Kyiv, there is no way you can ignore an air raid because missiles come, drones fly, and you have to hide. People have kids, people have schedules, people have work in the morning. All of you know how difficult it is to live in the cities with million plus population. And I see so many of my friends in Facebook and Instagram and how they share their tips to make themselves feel better. How do they sleep later? How do they try to come to work later? Or how many coffees they drink per day and other things. And Ukrainians are unbelievable in that resistance. One of my friends lately shared a very beautiful memory, like not a memory, but observation. She was in Zaporizhia, and you know that Zaporizhia is one of the cities that heavily targeted, and they have a chat of the city council or something where people exchange the updates and so on. And she said, we had a heavy air raid alarm. We had been attacked. A couple of explosions were heard, and people continued discussing how King Charles looked on his coronation. And she said, it's unbelievable. Like you can hear explosions in your own city, and people are talking about the romance between Charles and Camilla, which is beautiful. Because what can you do if these orcs continue targeting? You can give up, you can disappear, you can become grey and absent, or you can get strong and you can continue fighting. And I observe it daily with my people and in myself also. Sometimes we kind of get stronger. So there is no way they can win us, but they can continue killing us. And that's the problem, that's the tragedy. So on this very emotional day of the victory in the Second World War, let's pray and hope for the victory in this Russian war in Ukraine so that it does not turn into the Third World War. And contrary to Russians who like to repeat on their military parades, we can repeat. We follow the spirit of our allies and we say never again. And I'm happy that there will be fewer parades in Russia, and that is also the success of the Ukrainian armed forces, but we still have to win this war and we need your support. So please, don't get tired, don't forget about Ukraine, Don't forget to check my videos with the updates. Ask me questions. I'm always glad to answer them. Subscribe, become a member of our beautiful community, because honestly, you are my friends and I value your presence and your advice in my life. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons, and helping the channel to develop and filming more ideas. Greetings from Sasha, who is our videographer, and Andriy, who is our designer. And greetings from all the people whom you support, whose life you touch with your attention, with accepting the refugees, speaking about Ukraine, going on parades, quarreling. I don't know. It is all very important. We have to be focused. We have to continue fighting. And happy Victory Day, because we all know. And you're like, for me, honestly, war was always something associated with my grandparents. My grandparents were children of war. My grandfather was on the front lines for 1 year because he was very young. He was like 16, 17. But he participated in the Second World War. And for me, it was always like not my parents' deal, but my grandparents' deal, but not even exactly theirs because they were very young. And I thought it will never have anything to do with me. But you see, sometimes I still cannot believe that I'm like a woman of war or a person of war, and this is experience that needs to be fixed and lived through so others don't have to. Thank you so much for your support. Slava Ukraini!